All right, a quick 1 year follow-up to basically, is this saw worth it? And thank you for all the people in the first video. I'm aware the lighting was terrible, so it looked like I was using the fence on my first crosscut. I was not. I'm aware that even being an inch, I am aware that wasn't the safest thing. Thank you. Please don't ever come to one of my job sites because you would probably wet your panties if you saw the things that most guys do. So, that said, is it worth it? I think it's worth every penny. And I'll say this, I work for a nonprofit, here in East Akron, rough job sites. I supplement my income on a nonprofit salary, doing a lot of hardwood flooring and trim work. So I am not your typical Festool user. You'd imagine in some $6 million dollar house doing super high-end work. Sometimes I do, but not often. I actually work in low-income housing. Even then, is it worth it? It's worth every penny. The efficiency, what you save in time cleaning up, and you're allowed to enjoy your tools. This thing is fun to use. There's a factor there. I weigh that in my financial decision to buy it. The little things. If you're watching this, you telling me you've never been on a job site ripping something like this, holding on for dear life because it's sticking 9 feet out there, and all you got is that thumb holding that thing. That right there is almost worth the price of admission. Couple that with the wheels and the adjustability, the portability, and how solid this thing is. I mean, you can wiggle it if you really want, but when you are putting the pressure, on a cut like this, it is rock solid, as it should be. And I'm sure they thought of that. It's just the standalone is worth the price of admission in my eyes. And when you add all the little things that make it so great, it's worth every penny. If you don't do this for a living and you're just a hobbyist, might not be. If you're a GC and you don't do much finish work, might not. I think it would be, but you might not justify it, and I would get that. You're not using this to sheathe the house on the outside. If you're one of those guys that does a lot more rough carpentry, stick with what you got. This is not your saw, but anything that this leaves to be desired, which it is. It was an adjustment for me how narrow that is. I've used this way more than I thought to supplement that, and I have a track saw, and most of us do. The capacity has not really been an issue. It's been an inconvenience once or twice because I had to, I didn't have my track saw and I had to get it out. Boo-hoo, right? Big inconvenience. So the capacity has not been an issue for me. That's my experience. I do a lot of trim and mostly hardwood flooring. So take that for what you will. This thing I use way more often. I need to adjust it. There is a micro adjustment. You hear it? Just barely rubs. Doesn't affect anything, but apparently, I don't know. I saw Sedge did a video. You can take something apart and maybe get in here and adjust it, but it's never stopped anything. It works fine. It just rubs a little bit, and you can see the wear and tear. But overall, this feature I've used way more than I thought, and then how solid and adjustable it is just, that's a hell of a nice feature. So that's a big win. Points in the yes, it's worth it column. The DeWalt table saw to me is always the benchmark for what I compare things against. And when I first got this fence versus the old rack and pinion, with the lockdown here on the DeWalt, I was like, what is it? Like, there's no way this is going to be as good. But after a year, I will say, I think I prefer it. And why that is, so right here, we're getting to be, get out of the light, right at 10 centimeters, right? Say I have to go literally just a hair. When you unlock it, it doesn't bounce around or anything. My system is I take my thumb and I just kind of smush it, or because it's actually pretty heavy, you can barely tap this thing, and when you lock it, it is rock solid. And I think this is engineered. You can wiggle it a little bit if you really try, but when you're pushing on it, if I'm putting a board through here and my weight's forward, it doesn't move an inch. And this fence is, I think, a big part of that. I mean, it is solid. So that actually won me over. At first, I did not think it was nearly as good, and it's grown on me. I might even favor it. What else we got? One of my favorite features. This is like a memory bank of your most recent settings. So if you write down, your width, and even if you write down these, it doesn't have to be saved digitally. say you were doing something like these grooves for a cabinet drawer. You know, this all have to match perfectly, but you want to run some baseboard, or today's project was, you know, finishing some flooring or something like that. You can throw all that out the window. As long as you write down your measurement, it is so easy to go back and perfectly recreate that. I don't know that this saw can be beat. You know, a lot of these features are light years ahead of their competition on their own. When you put them together, it's pretty hard to beat. So if you already have a vacuum, dust collection. I will say it's not perfect. I mean, you're gonna have a little dust, and I do still occasionally work in, you know, pretty high-end homes. There's not a single job I've ever had I couldn't hook this up to a vacuum, run it. My vacuum's on a job site right now. Run it and clean up when I was done, and not have a single issue as far as cleanliness. And for context, I helped sand the Akron Art Museum's floors. I've definitely worked in some dust-free environments. This thing passes the test for me. So take that for what you want. I can't think of anything else. Overall, it's just a great saw. The fun factor, when it first came out, some of the Facebook groups, guys were calling it a little toy, you know. I am a nerd for that. I have Bluetooth switches on all my vacuums. And every time I push the button and it turns on, I kind of giggle like a little kid. I love it. So the toy factor is there, and yeah, it's awesome. Very fun to use. So if you're a finish guy, if you're already in the Festool system, runtime, that's another one. It's not amazing. I build little boxes as a little hobby or whatever. So when you're breaking down all the material, and then I do a lot of cutting. I can usually only make one box, which I think would be like equivalent, if you're trimming out a kitchen, it'd be like till lunch. And I think I've seen other guys in different groups say that they usually have to charge the batteries on their lunch break or swap them out. But again, I mean, I'm in the system, not an issue for me. If I had to buy another set on top of that, and I didn't have a vacuum and I had to buy that, it'd be a little bit different conversation. But the runtime it's not bad at all. I think that's it. So overall, it's a winner. I highly recommend it. And let me say this, I'm not Jeff Bezos, so, you know, I'm not businessman of the year, but I was trained by some excellent business owners. And the one thing that drives me nuts about the trades, and some of you watching this, I guarantee are guilty of this, the race to the bottom as far as estimating and what we give our customers. Well, I'll throw that in. I already had it in the truck. Oh, well, I don't have to pay for health insurance. My wife has it, so I'll pass the savings along to you. Most guys in the trades are excellent tradesmen. They're terrible businessmen. And if they wanted to own a business, they would open one that was more profitable. What's the saying? It's a good way to live, but a shitty way to make a living is the trades. And that's why HVAC, I think, is the most franchised. It's highly repeatable, service calls, stuff like that. And they only do one thing. If you're a finish carpenter, at least for me, I get into a lot of stuff other than just finish carpentry. So it's not easy to specialize and just charge for one thing. All that to say this, if you look at a purchase like this, like, oh, I can't afford that, or I would never spend that, don't forget, the minute that you pay for your tools and you're not charging your customers accordingly, I'm not saying you charge one customer for a $2,500 saw. I'm not saying that. But if you're not building that in, let's see, health insurance, 401k of some sort of retirement, your vacation time, your vehicle, your clothing, your dental. Half of you guys have holes in your clothes and no fucking teeth because you don't charge for it. And hey, do what you want, but just remember, the second you pay for your tools, you're running a charity. Businesses pass that along to the customer. They provide a service that justifies that cost, but they charge that customer for it. So I would say treat yourself. You deserve it. You work hard. You do nice work. Let somebody else pay for it for once. Go get you this table saw. It's a great saw. So thanks for watching.